And there we go. Again, welcome. Thank you for being here today. This is our first brown bag presentation of the new OLLI membership year, and I'm Kim Laney, your OLLI coordinator. Just a quick note about the closed captioning. I do have it turned on for those who would like to have it on their device. If you don't want it on your device, you can navigate to the bottom of your screen and turn the live transcription off. This, as I said, is a new membership year, and we have a great lineup of summer classes, and we encourage you to join or renew your OLLI membership today. The new year started on July 1st, and we are looking forward to having you join us this year. We also want to thank the Friends of OLLI who support make the weekly brown bag presentations possible. Please help us to continue to provide these excellent free presentations by making a donation to OLLI at HSU today. Following today's presentation, we will make the recording available on our website, and you can link to the archive at the bottom. You can navigate down, and the brown bag presentation link has moved. It's now under news and events on our homepage. And quickly, before we get started, I do want to remind you that it's helpful when you register for classes if you register early. That helps us make sure we get that meeting link to you in a timely way. And if you haven't already, please mute yourself so that we don't get distracted during the presentation. And Dr. Capps will be, she will be providing a time for questions at the end of her presentation. So please plan to post questions or put them in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jane for the introduction. And again, I just want to thank you all for being here today.
And welcome to everyone. This is our first brown bag lunch presentation for this quarter, this session. And we're happy to welcome Dr. Jenn Capps, who's Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs and has been in this role at HSU since July 31st, 2020. Previous to coming to HSU, she served as Dean of the College of Professional Studies at Metropolitan State University of Denver, a fellow former Denverite. Additionally, she is a full professor with expertise in criminal justice and psychology and a licensed professional counselor. Welcome, Jenn. It's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for attending and listening to what's going on at HSU and Polytechnic wise. So my plan for today is this. I'm going to put up some PowerPoint slides to take us through a little bit of a presentation. If I'm successful, I will speak under 30 minutes, hopefully a little bit less, but it's really to frame kind of what the idea was, what's happening now, and what the future holds, but really be able to provide you a little bit of information and then spark your questions, because really what I find to be the most interesting and important part of time together is really being able to tailor my responses and provide you up to the minute information. So without further ado, as some of you all may have heard, Humboldt State is working toward a Polytechnic designation for our institution. And part of y'all might go, well, what the heck is that? What does that mean? A Polytechnic university is an institution that embraces a learn by doing approach to education. This might sound sort of familiar for those of you that are familiar with HSU, because 90% of our students already have some sort of robust hands-on learning experience. So it's a pretty good fit with who we are already as an institution. Polytechnic institutions are career focused. They're focused on making sure that students upon graduation have pathways, at least one, I hope for at least 3 for our students, pathways to career and success. Polytechnic universities focus on delivering curriculum in 4 major field areas. So engineering is having robust offerings in natural sciences, applied sciences, technology, and engineering. And then lastly, maintaining a very strong liberal arts curriculum. So I want to like exclamation point that part, because sometimes I think people become afraid if we are embracing this Polytechnic identity that it means we're dismissing or doing less of liberal arts and humanities. And that just isn't the case. It's really building on that robust, comprehensive education that we offer. All right, let's see here. So why Polytechnic? Why do this? So HSU is really a Polytechnic. They're nearly a Polytechnic institution already without the designation. My previous descriptions with respect to our learn by doing, our robust science offerings, those sorts of things really speak to that. But the other value and benefit to a Polytechnic designation for an institution is that broader recognition, the prestige associated with that designation. There are many students and prospective students and families that seek out a Polytechnic designated institution to attend. And so there's a great deal of prestige. In my mind, also, it really aligns who we are as an institution with something that external or potential students can readily identify what HSU is and make a decision about wanting to come here or not, which I think is helpful for our broader marketing strategy for potential students. And what I like to say, if you are a sports person or understand basketball, I like to say this makes us a triple threat university. All right, so it creates access to programs where students are seeking to get into, but they're full at other CSU institutions. So we're creating programs that students can't get into at other places. So creating access, also aligning more of our academic programs with where these big workforce gaps are in the state of California and beyond. And then third, it really allows for a stimulation of the North Coast economy. So bringing in jobs, boosting the economy, helping to support the North Coast. So those are super important things. All right. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we have engaged in with regard to Polytechnic self-study. So we've been working with our system office for quite some time. So the California State University System Office, about becoming this Polytechnic for the CSU system. So there's already Pomona and San Luis Obispo, but there isn't a Polytechnic in the northern part of the state. And so we've been working alongside the leaders within the Chancellor's office and derived a process to do a self-study, to really take a look at our institution, to really engage different internal and external partners and put together a document that really demonstrates the robust and great things that are happening at HSU, but also put forward what our plans are to expand and grow. And so since January, we've been involved in this Polytechnic self-study. There's a steering group, and then there's been these 7 different working groups that worked on different parts of that self-study. And this slide illustrates those different components. So things like the name, how do we engage external partners? What's our business plan? What academic programs are moving forward? How do we embed and make sure that that cross-disciplinarity and the role of liberal arts is not only maintained, but elevated, those types of things. And so we've had wide scale engagement, and essentially anybody who has raised their hand who is asked to be involved in the process has been welcomed into the process. So I wanted to share that. Timeline. So people are often asking, like, what the heck is this timeline? When is HSU going to be a Polytechnic? Is it a done deal, as Jane was already asking? So there's a couple of different components to becoming a Polytechnic designated institution. So the Cal State system is overseen by a board of trustees for the system. And in order to change a name or be designated something, it has to go through board approval. And so we have to get official board approval to call ourselves a Polytechnic institution. And this timeline represents many of the different steps that we've been going through toward that board approval. I feel very confident because we've been working in partnership with our Chancellor's office that we absolutely have to go through all of these steps. but I don't anticipate any big surprises or that we would be told no, because we've been in lockstep partnership with our system and our leadership all the way along. But it's super important that we follow the rules and we follow the process. And this represents this first slide really represents the self-study process, our campus collaboration. We've been putting forward different iterations of our self-study draft so we can get feedback from our chancellor's office to say, hey, yeah, this looks like it's on the right track, or we'd like to see more of this. And as you can see in July, beginning to engage the Board of Trustees so that they can view what our progress is and provide feedback to us as well. And if I move to the second slide, you'll see that September 1st is when we will submit our final version of our self-study officially to the Chancellor's office. And then that gets submitted forward to the Board of Trustees with hopeful agenda item in early 2022 in front of the board for formal approval. You'll see on this slide too, there's pieces about curricular build out. The curricular build out is now. It started in spring of this past semester. It will continue throughout the fall and beyond. And we're hoping for the kind of formal final designation by fall 2023. And really what that means is we will have what we believe to be a quote robust enough set of academic programs that we feel confident to call ourselves a polytechnic institution at that time. As you can imagine, there are a lot of bureaucratic steps to go through, and our university is also an accredited university. And so making sure that we're following lockstep through all of those processes. This is stuff you all don't have to worry as much about, but just to know that that's why kind of the timeline takes a little bit, is to make sure that we're following all of these different rules and processes. So the stuff that people really are interested in, from my perspective, is about money and academic programs and the name a little bit. So money and academic programs. So some of y'all may have heard, if you haven't, hold on to your seat. But we have been working on this Polytechnic plan for quite a while. And as you all may have noticed, that there was a change in the chancellor. Chancellor White retired in December, January, and Chancellor Castro came on board the beginning of this calendar year. And part of Chancellor Castro's introduction to that role was to go around and visit with different campuses, learn a little bit more about them. And so when he did a virtual visit with our campus in April, I was super, super impressed with the work that we've done to build out our Polytechnic self-study plan. Really, really impressed, was talking a lot about it, had a very opportune time to meet with the governor very shortly after the virtual visit with us. They had a conversation, mentioned our Polytechnic plans. The governor said, well, hey, do they need any money? I really believe very deeply in polytechnics. And at that time, we were asked, HSU leadership was asked to put forward a funding request regarding our polytechnic aspirations. At such time, the good news was, because we've been doing all this work for so darn long, we had it, right? We had all the associated costs. And so we put forward this $458 million request, $25 million in base funding. So it's another way to say ongoing funding, and then $433 million in one-time funding to support a robust fast-track polytechnic build out. And all summer long, well, let me back up. So the governor received this information and then put it in the May revised budget, the entire request, which was unprecedented, historic, all summer long. It's been going through the budget process, and it was just signed by the governor last week, and the entire suite of money was approved for HSU, which is an absolute, just a moment that I probably will never experience again in my career, but absolutely incredible for HSU. And so I wanted to break that down a little bit. So 25 million in base funding for fast track academic programs. So what we did was we really sought to focus on, again, that triple threat: programs where students are seeking access, programs where there's big workforce need, and then creating, stimulating the North Coast economy. And so really focused on areas like engineering, cybersecurity and technology, things like wildfire management, climate resilience, and health. Now this is tentative, so there's potentially some room for change, but academic programs that we have already submitted for hopeful rollout by 2023 are reflected on this slide, and you'll see things like energy systems engineering, mechanical engineering, data science, cannabis studies, cybersecurity certificate, these sorts of things, fire science management, etc. And so these, again, these programs were prioritized by our academic programs working group and within consultation throughout the university and through our external partners. And so again, what we tried to do was align where the programs students are having trouble getting into, where are programs that we can leverage unique expertise of our institution and our faculty, and where are there programs we can launch that align with the priorities that the state has. So thinking about wildland fire and the issues we have with fire. And we have a really great fire lab, a fire institute that we could align programming with. Let's see here. I'm not sure why my computer just froze.
Do you want to try stop sharing and then read and then do it again and see if that?
Yeah, I can try. I've just lost my cursor, so I'm not really sure why that is. Very strange. Let me try. That is very weird. Sorry about that. I could probably do the presentation, you know, without, but I don't know why I've lost my cursor. Oh, now I'm drawing. That is very strange. I don't know how to undo it. Yeah.
Let's see if I can help.
Yeah, can you boot me out and we can try to boot me back in again?
Yeah, I only know how to do this one way, so I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Either that, Jen, or is this, have you changed the presentation? I could just bring it up and screen share it.
You could. I have probably changed it, but it's okay. No, go ahead though. It's fine. It's better than being stuck here. I don't really know what's happening with my computer. So
Connie, I just made you a co-host.
oh, well.
That do something for you, Jen?
Oh, wait a minute. I think
There you go.
yeah, but I don't know why there's scribbles. Well, you'll never forget the presentation. I don't know what the heck is going on, but we'll just keep going. Very, very strange. But anyway, so here's some of the programs that we're looking at for 2026 and 2029. Again, some of this is flexible. I will share there's not as much health programs as that you will see in future iterations of our plan and our model. So I just wanted to note that because it's just not, it's not there quite yet. And so it will be in future times. But we really, again, wanted to align that with the technology, the engineering, et cetera. There we go. All right. So the one-time money, I also wanted to share a lot of people go, wow, $433 million, that is a tremendous amount of resources, and 110% is a tremendous amount of resources. Wanted to share with you a little bit about what the focus of those resources are going to be. And you all are actually a particularly important group to share this with, because one thing that I can imagine perhaps some longtime community members might be worried about is, holy cannoli, if you're going to be building out this Holy Polytechnic thing and a ton more students are coming our way, how in the world are we going to be able to house them? Is this going to be too much for our community? How are folks going to get healthcare? All of those sorts of things. What about our infrastructure for technology, those sorts of things? And so a lot of the resources set aside or that were funded our way were really to support all of those things, right? To be able to help support housing our students, housing potentially workforce in partnership with other big employers in the region, being able to build out academic space, but also not thinking in silos about utilization of space, but how do we do more mixed use space that is supportive of student success, but is also pleasing to the community as well. So those are things that we're thinking through and planning for right now with respect to on campus and then extending some of our footprint of our university beyond just traditionally what folks know is HSU. And then also, and Connie would be a good one to chime in on here or there on this conversation if she wants to as well, but really looking at expanding our technology, expanding our broadband to really not only help the institution, but help the area as well, because we really believe that this is an access issue. And if we can't have reliable connectivity, then it's really very limiting for our institution and for our region. This is the line item list of the things, if folks are interested in the details, but the 433 million in one time that was put forward in more details beyond the slide I just said just previously. So you can see how that breaks down broadly, but a lot, housing and infrastructure can be quite expensive, as you can imagine. So that's where we landed on those pieces. And then I'm always a great contact if you have questions regarding Polytechnic. Lisa Von Maupin, she's been in a few different roles here at HSU. She's currently serving as special assistant to the president and deputy chief of staff. So she and I have been collaborating together on leading this Polytechnic process from idea to execution. And so we're always good folks to reach out to if you have additional questions, you want to get involved, those sorts of things. So I wanted to put that resource out to you all as well. I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a second. And never in my life have I not been able to advance slides and then have a drawing feature show up. So you all are going to be in my memory forever with regard to that weird quirkiness that just happened with my computer. Perhaps I need to put in for some of that tech money to get a new computer. I don't know. But anyway, let's see, I did pretty good, 24 minutes, right? And so I can dive into as much detail on pretty much anything that you want, but I really wanted to have an opportunity to make sure that what I speak about, that I can lend myself to answering the questions that you all have and not just droning on about what I find interesting, right? So, and I'm happy, I see in the chat a couple of questions. So why don't I start there and then I can look for hands or people can just chime in. So I hear somebody saying, I'm curious what Humboldt's new name will be. So one of the 7 working groups was University Naming Committee. And there is an expectation, as you can imagine, that we incorporate Polytechnic into our name at some level, which certainly makes sense. And we definitely want that recognition. And so there's been a couple of recommendations that have been put forward. The official kind of long name, I think there's several variations on the theme, like Humboldt State Polytechnic University, California State Polytechnic University, Humboldt. But primarily what it boils down to is, I think, what the recommendation moving forward is primarily the shorter name of Cal Poly Humboldt. Okay, so the long name is sort of up for debate, but what we envision sort of the branding is Cal Poly Humboldt. We did not want to lose Humboldt from the name, but we wanted to capture the Cal Poly part of it. This, of course, would be something that would need to be approved by the system and the chancellor's office, because we're part of that system. But that's sort of where we're landing in the moment as we speak. I'm happy to share the slide deck. I'll remove the scribbles, of course. I see number of students anticipated in timeline. So we are hopeful, as you know, that we've suffered from some declines in enrollments over the years. And so we're sitting at about 5,500 students, 5,600 students right now. Our hope, and hold on to your chair, our hope is that in about 7 or 8 years that we can double the number of students we have at the institution. That wouldn't necessarily be double the number of students in Humboldt County all of the time. Part of our rollout plan is also to leverage what we've learned from the pandemic and keep a robust offering of online courses on the books, and also figure out how we can help to attract different populations of students over the summertime, part-time students, that sort of thing. And so, but we hope within 3 to 4 years to increase our enrollment by about 50%, and about 7 or 8 years, double that enrollment. But that would be a very phased plan, and that would be in partnership with infrastructure build out, and in partnership with the city of Arcata, Eureka, et cetera, to make sure that we're not stressing our community and our system, that we're in lockstep partnership with our partners. Let's see here. One other thing I did want to share when I see the piece about timeline, we're looking at Polytechnic. So we're hoping for this, designation and official branding of the institution by 2023, but we really are looking at a phased rollout of academic programs and build out through 2029. And that's really intentional, because we wanted to do phases so that we don't just do everything all at once. It's certainly an aggressive phased plan, but certainly when we get such support and an investment from the state, we feel like that's an important thing to be able to do. Can you say more about the cannabis science curriculum? So yeah, so cannabis curriculum is an interdisciplinary curriculum that has been in the works for quite some time. It's actually fairly newish to the state of California, although one junior college, I believe, got there before we did. So we're taking a somewhat conservative, kind of first dipping our toes into the cannabis curriculum space, looking at more the social political landscape of things out of the gate, the implications, how it affects society and politics and criminal justice and that sort of thing, to start and see how things go, and then see how we can evolve from there. There are numerous spaces within cannabis that we can jump into, but wanting to kind of start there. And just I think, as Jane mentioned, I was in Colorado for many years, and at my previous institute, Colorado is a little bit ahead of California with respect to feeling okay more broadly with the laws and such around cannabis, but we had launched some cannabis curriculum in Colorado, and it went just fine, and we pretty much took the same tactic as well. So we don't intend to be cautious, but try to be innovative at the same time.
Jen, sorry, this is Kim. Before you get going, there is a question that we got in the OLLI email inbox that's related to that last question. And it just, in what ways can the local cannabis community collaborate with HSU as it involves the new cannabis program beyond the feedback they've already given? And then the county is about to undertake a branding program for our ag. How can we get the local businesses involved? And thank you for your leadership.
Okay, there's a lot of questions in the chat. So, Josh Mizell and Dominique, and I'm forgetting his last name, Connie.
Cordova.
Thank you, Cordova. They're really the two that are kind of leading, Josh particularly is sort of leading, is the leadership behind the curricular and build out, and not to, and Connie as well, being very much involved in the process with respect to the curriculum, the partnership, the planning and guideline, all of that sort of thing. So that's probably who I would better direct you to with the details, because I'm not as much in the details with those pieces. But there's a lot of room for continued kind of creativity and partnership, as well as to hear any sort of concerns people have as well. I mean, I think that that's super important.
If I can just add briefly, the California Center for Rural Policy at Humboldt State University has been working very closely with the county on the equity portion of the businesses. And Humboldt County has been very successful at bringing in money to assure that the small businesses and those that were already here can compete with any other businesses that are coming in. And so we're working very closely on that. And we also were given 2 grants recently by the state of California to do some economic development numbers to determine really what is the size of the legal market and what is its impact, not only just in Humboldt County, but from Sonoma north, and also to do some statewide economic development information as well. So we're very engaged in the local policy pieces of this. We're not touching the plant. we're focused on the policy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's helpful. That, like I said, Connie's deep involved, so I appreciate her speaking to that. I see a question. I received my MBA from Humboldt. Will there be an impact to the business department? I'm going to say yes, but not in the way you think. I think there's going to be an impact to most programs in that they will feel, they'll have hopefully an increase of students and an increase of enrollment. So there is no like nefarious plan to do away with programs that aren't Polytechnic, but rather what I think will happen and what I've experienced in the past with projects like this is that there are opportunities where when we have a more aligned identity as an institution, people get who we are a little bit more broadly. It attracts more students, and most, if not all, programs see a rise with respect to enrollment, which then provides some security of programming. So I just wanted to share that because I think that's a cool thing. Someone asked, what about faculty? How much faculty increase? I'm assuming what that's getting at is, are we going to add faculty to the university? And if that's what the question is gearing toward, yes. I mean, part of that 25 million base funding is to support increases in faculty lines to stand up these programs, but also to recognize where there are places where we may need to add additional faculty across the institution because there's going to be more enrollments in general studies courses and just more enrollment more broadly. I'd also share that it's not just students, but it's business operations, it's advising, it's recruitment, it's marketing, it's all of those things. So thinking, and like I said, we've been working on this plan for quite some time, and then to get an infusion of resources to support us to be able to move more quickly is just really an amazing thing. Let's see. Jane, so you are asking about plans for using properties recently acquired by HSU Foundation, such as the Craftsman Mall. So as you can imagine, with an infusion of resources to help support infrastructure build out for students, for workforce, and for academic programs, but then also to think about how do we do some mixed use spaces. So what we're doing is really evaluating the different holdings and spaces that we have, and then figuring out how to align those spaces best with the different needs that we have. And so we're right in the midst of kind of making those decisions about what will go where, how much things cost, and we're doing that in partnership with with the community as well. We don't want anyone to feel blindsided or upset by, decisions that we make, and really wanting to make sure that the community can feel as comfortable as possible with how we move forward. So we don't have it like any sort of set decision quite yet, but happy to share when we do. Is HSU planning to focus on particular specialties on creating special programs such as kinesiology or the SHOTS Energy Lab? Will there be increased emphasis on climate change science? Does HSU plan to work with the local tribes? Yeah. So yeah, all of that stuff. So what we really did try to do was focus on both the internal strengths that exist at the institution, where the big workforce gaps are, and where the priorities are that were set forward by the state. And so many of those are the things you just listed: climate change, climate resiliency, fire science. So those are reflected in some of the degree programs that were put forward, as well as climate adaptation as well. So yeah, that's all reflected in the academic programs pieces as well. Let's see. I feel like I'm having a conversation with myself because I'm reading like off the list, but are you thinking about desalination at all? Seems really important to do. Yes. You know what? Yes. Just water in general is something that has come up quite a bit more recently. And that is something I think that feels a little bit more like it's in our, when I talk about a 9-year plan, it feels a little bit more in the mid range of our 9-year plan. But I have to tell you that keeps coming up. And it feels like something that we need to get some experts around a table and really talk through, and perhaps speed that up a little bit. So if that's something I think that's super important. Will academic resource allocations acknowledge the higher cost of teaching in the sciences? There's been rather flat funding across the disciplines for many years. That is, I'm trying to think best how to answer that question. Yes, and so that's a yes and question. So I think what I've been working on over the past year is really understanding how we budget and offer resources to different departments across the institution. And then how we do things like strategically schedule, how we make different decisions about how we fund the institution. And so really trying to adjust our budget structure and have a more flexible budget structure, but also one that provides essentially, this is going to sound like, well, duh, of course you should do this, but provide more resources to programs that are growing, right? So when a program grows, they're going to need more resources. And in my experience so far, it seems like kind of finances have been doled out just sort of equal, no matter if things are kind of going up and down. So being able to create structures that be able to ebb and flow with respect to resources where they need to. All right. Are there a lot of strings attached to the state funding? Or are you free to respond to changing needs? Can you count on continued funding after the initial infusion? So 25 million is base budget, right? So that is ongoing money that shall come year over year. With that increase, what we predict as an increase in enrollment will become more tuition revenue, which should also add more resources to the institution. So that base funding we should be able to count on. Are there strings attached? Sure. I mean, there's accountability attached, and I'd have it no other way, right? And so Polytechnic money is not free for all money just to kind of plug up old kind of bad habits or things, ways in which maybe we haven't done the best job with respect to budgeting in different areas. It's very, very clearly to support this Polytechnic build out. And then at the same time, we're really working, we've been deep in the weeds with working on addressing some of our structural budget challenges, which about 95% of the way there. So it seems like kind of the perfect time all the way around. how will you find faculty? Well, one of the strategies that we're seeking to employ is a cluster hire strategy. And we're still in the midst of sorting out exactly what that means. So if cluster hiring, if for those of you who may or may not be familiar, is a strategy where you create, and I'm not going to say it very well because I'm a little bit new to the cluster hire strategy, but where we will seek to hire a group of faculty across the different colleges, but have area of expertise focus on one or more particular areas. So in this case, what I would think is that we focus on diversity, so hiring diverse faculty, but focus on faculty across the university, whether they're an engineer or they're an English faculty, but that they all have some expertise in perhaps sustainability or traditional ecological knowledge, some of these core foundational components that we have infused into our Polytechnic identity as an institution. And so doing a cluster hire then creates this cohort and this identity that it has been correlated with kind of better retention for faculty and really can help to upscale our institution, I think. But that's what we're working on right now. We have an incredible, if you haven't had an opportunity to meet her, an incredible Associate Vice President and Campus Diversity Officer, Dr. Ella Vandora. She's terrific, and she's going to be actually leading the cluster hire process in partnership with me. Let's see. I see a lot of vacant retail and office space locally. Has any thought been given to adapting existing infrastructure? Do you want to say more about that? Or you, Willa, if you're able to unmute?
Well, I was just thinking that sometimes it's more economically feasible to remodel than to build from scratch. And I live in Eureka, so I see what's going on in downtown Eureka. And if you're talking about satellite locations, I just thought maybe there are opportunities there for some creative thinking.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. To be honest with you, I don't think anything's off the table. I think that we want to be very careful and considerate partners in this process with our community members. We want it to be a win-win situation for the community and for campus and for our future students. So I think it's a great idea. So yeah, absolutely. I see HSU has some of the highest student fees in the CSU system. Can students expect a decrease in fees in the future as enrollment increases? What I'll share with you is that I think whether enrollment increases or not, we're looking at reviewing our student fee structure this forthcoming year anyway, out of recognition for what you're identifying, David. So I think that we are trying to sort our way through how can we create a system that provide students with what they need, but then also that feels a little bit more doable. So yes, I think outside of even enrollment increases, I think that's the goal. Let's see, how is existing faculty responding to the coming challenge? So what do you mean by challenge, Jane? You mean just by Polytechnic designation? Are you equating that to a challenge?
Yes, basically. Are they excited? Are they wanting to participate? Are they throwing in all kinds of ideas because they want to specialize or increase their programs? What's actually happening at the faculty level?
Yeah, so the Polytechnic self-study and all those working groups engaged numerous faculty, staff, students, administrators, community members, etc. It's been by far and away the most positive and exciting thing that I've been involved in with faculty, period, by far. So it's been great. I think that people are super excited, see the possibility, the potential in the institution. And you know, one thing I've tried to do, even beyond Polytechnic, you know, HSU has faced some budgetary issues for a long time. There's been a lot of things taken away and challenges and struggles, and it can be hard to thrive in a reductionist kind of environment. So I've been really trying to seek to how do we build and create rather than just take away. And so I think this is a good representation of when we start to build and vision new ideas, what happens. I mean, couldn't have in my wildest dreams imagined receiving support in funding the way that we did. Never in my wildest dreams, and that happened. And I, you know, provide all the credit in the world to our faculty and our staff on that one, frankly.
I know in the process of having to cut back, we lost a number of very talented adjunct faculty, part-time people, etc., and they had to leave. Do we expect to be able to pull back some people like that as part of this?
I think one thing that we need to pay attention to as an institution is that this isn't going to be the most popular thing I'll say today, but is that when our enrollment declines, then the number of classes that we offer decline. When our enrollment increases, then the number of classes that we can offer increase. And that's just kind of normal. We haven't done that so well historically at HSU. We try to hold on to holding these really small classes. And I totally get that from a heart place. From a business place, it destroys our budget. And so how do we find the right place in the middle to help support keeping as many folks employed as we can without bankrupting ourselves? So that's sort of been the past and how we try to identify pathways for structural budget health. I think that there are pathways to be able to invite in and employ many, many more faculty, but it needs to be in alignment with where students are registering, what students are interested in, and what programs we're building out. And we're identifying through data where students will come, right? And so that's the less, that's just the truth. So I think that there will be more opportunities. What I think what's even more exciting to me is as we, and we've already started to incorporate this approach, there'll be more stability. And so, right, I think in the recent past, there's been less stability and this feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna have a job next year or next semester, or they might call me back, or I might leave. I think we can get much more predictive if we base it stronger on data and on student interest. So that's what I share.
I also asked, how do OLLI and external ed fit into this new vision? That's a leading question.
Well, you know what? I mean, I would hate to bounce that back to, I mean, I think I have that could be a whole hour conversation in and of itself, but I feel like completely infused in an important part. I mean, I think that external education, I mean, I feel like historically, and this is my read being a year in, I feel like this is what I've taken, is that we've really focused very much on kind of one pathway of prospective student at HSU. I really want to think about students who are part-time students, students that want to enroll in the summer, students that want to be online, students that are working professionals that want to come back, those types of pathways. In many ways, I think extended ed is a good sort of pathway back into the institution. I also think about certificates and skills. I think about engagement with the community with OLLI, all of those things. OLLI and extended ed is super, super important. And we need to continue to talk and vision in those places. So.
And another area of interest is collaboration with our college down south, Redwood.
College of the Redwoods?
College of Redwoods, yeah. And how we can meet local professional and craft needs
Mm-hmm.
as part of this, because that coordination is going to be critical. And I mean, we don't have enough carpenters, for goodness sakes. We don't have enough hands-on scientists and researchers to do some of the work that needs to be done. Are we going to work with them on that?
We already are. So
I
yeah,
know you are to extent, yeah.
yeah, no, throughout this academic year, this past academic year, developed an incredibly robust and strong partnership with CR, and looking at all the things that you're sharing, as well as expanding our partnerships with other community colleges. I did a visit with President Jackson a couple of weeks back and with Connie, in fact, to Lassen Community College, which is a little bit out, but figuring out those partnerships and those pathways as well. I think it would be short-sighted to just try to do all this by ourselves, but how do we help support and lift up and create opportunities for everybody? And I agree with you, all of those gaps exist, and we want to help support and build those out as well. Let's see here. I see a question about qualified applicants, our qualified applicants for new faculty wanting to live in Humboldt. You know, I'll just share with you, we've did limited faculty hiring this past academic year. It was pretty limited because we were working through some budget challenges and had some declines in enrollment. But in the searches that we did do, we did not have any trouble attracting candidates at all. We had way more wonderful, incredible, qualified, diverse applicants than we could hire. And in some cases, we're able to hire more than one candidate. So I don't think we'll have a problem, but we're being very thoughtful and thinking through strategy, and again, around the cluster hire piece and some other components, and starting our search is very, very early. So looking to start that search process and give ourselves an entire year to complete those really important strategic hires. I see a question from Richard: to what extent do marketing studies support the move to Polytechnic? Well, what I would share with you is that workforce data and the access issues that exist at other campuses, what we call, it's a strange word, I don't like the word, so I don't use it very much, but impacted programs, right? It makes me think of like working in the hospital when I used to work in the hospital. But what we look to is really data informed practice to look at where are there impacted programs, where are there workforce gaps, and where are there programmatic opportunities that align with the priorities of the state. And all of those things converged on the planning and the things we put forward, and they're all Polytechnic stuff. So I think there's incredibly strong support with respect to our move to Polytechnic. It's from my perspective, what I always say is we're sitting on a winning lottery ticket. We just need to cash it in and go forth.
Jen, there's also a question that Irit has put in twice, and I'm not exactly sure what it means either. Does this program need to comply with the county and city planning guidelines and process? And I'm wondering if that has to do with the cannabis or if it's something else. And I don't know if Irit can speak to that. I don't know if she has the ability to unmute herself and do that on this meeting.
Build out and land use. So I thought it was related to cannabis, which is why I was sort of referring back to Dominic, Josh, and Connie. If you're talking about, you know, infrastructure projects and stuff, certainly. I mean, of course, we have to follow the rules. I mean, I don't know how much more to speak to that. I mean, certainly.
Well, for example, with the former village project, there was a lot of research, a lot of feedback, and guidelines created. And depending on what you plan to do with that, my understanding is the state does not have to follow any community guidelines, any community planning requirements, etc. You're a state entity and you are free to ignore whatever the community has in terms of policies and guidelines.
Thanks for the clarifier. So Jane, you're right. I mean, the state, yes, because we're a state entity, we don't have to, but what we seek to do is to be in partnership with the community and what the community desires. So our interest is not to upset everyone, but really work in partnership as best we can. But just because we have, we don't have to, doesn't mean that we want to be a bull in a china shop and run around and upset everybody. So hence why, during the Polytechnic self-study process, really seeking to invite people in and be a part of the process. And I would love, any of y'all's feedback regarding, anything that we're seeking to do. So just want to share that.
I think you can go back and see a lot of the feedback that was provided to HSU with respect to the building of student apartments there. There's a tremendous amount on that record if you want to explore that, because if you start building housing similar to the former project, it's going to be interesting.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I had another question regarding the HVAC, which is where OLLI used to present a lot of its classes. Is that going to be an option again? Do you have any idea, or is that totally reserved now for HSU administrative people?
I think what we're doing is working, I don't know. I think what we're doing is working through a plan to integrate programming across the institution and sort of beyond the institution. So I don't have a kind of a solid this way forward for now, but I think we're seeking to figure that out along with some of the plans that we're putting forward. So so it isn't, so not sure yet what we're doing.
Yeah, we were just curious because in terms of OLLI's planning, we're planning to stay online for the foreseeable future because it's worked for us.
Okay.
But that option in coming back in person is kind of non-existent. So we're just kind of curious as to what the future of that is.
Yeah, I think what we're needing to do is have a meeting, an internal meeting, and talk about kind of different options in that respect. And so I think things have been a little bit, those plans are in place to kind of meet and come up with a plan. My guess that will happen in early fall when some folks are back on campus. So
are we going to have Center Arts back?
How do you mean?
Well, there was a Center Arts program here at HSU.
Yeah, Center Arts isn't going away.
Okay. I haven't seen any information about it, so I didn't know whether it was planned for the fall.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure out all our guidance and guidelines, but Center Arts isn't going away.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because it was a great community service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to interrupt. I know, Dr. Capps, that you have a meeting starting at 1 o'clock. And so with 1 minute to spare, I just want to make sure that we say thank you and give you an applause for a great presentation. I put in the chat where you will be able to find the presentation when it's available.
Cool.
So it will be there hopefully in just a day or two, if not later today.
Yeah, that sounds terrific. And thanks for having me. And if you have additional questions, do feel free to shoot me an email. I'd be happy to answer them anytime. Okay. Thanks so much for your robust questions in the chat. You're a terrific group. So thank you. Thank you. And
thank you ever so much for participating.
Bye.
Take care now. And thank everybody for joining us.